This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by DigitalOcean and by Ting. Go to last.ting.com and save $25 off your first device or your first month of service. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, episode 318. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Good morning to you, Matt.
Good morning.
Are you ready for me to tell folks about the huge show today?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, coming up on this week's episode of The Big Show, we're going to go down to Charlotte, North Carolina. We had a crew down there at the ground for SouthEast LinuxFest, right?
That sounds right.
Southeast LinuxFest, which, by the way, totally unrelated to Southeast Leatherfest. I'll tell you more about that later in the show.
That could be a crossover there.
The two things were going on at the same time. I'm just going to leave it at that for right now. So we've got some great highlights and interviews from the ground at Southeast LinuxFest 2014. We'll play those for you in the second half of the show. And then in the news segment, there's a new distro that's looking really good. It's built all around Wayland, so we'll tell you about that. Plus, Firefox OS has a new place they want to live in your home.
Yeesh.
Then there's some gaming news and a little bit of rumors coming out of AMD regarding their plans for Mantle on Linux. So we'll tell you all about that. Plus, we have our picks, feedback, and much, much more.
Nice.
All right, Matt, well, why don't we start with our picks?
All right.
You're going to love this one. I think you're going to be all on board with this. This goofy-looking security guard robot
Twiggy.
runs Linux.
Oh, that's awesome.
Look at this guy. So this is SouthEast, I believe is how you say it, the G5 generation. And we're going to talk about two of them today here on The Big Show. So we got two. I'm sorry. The one on the left is named Bob.
Oh, okay, so we have Bob, and then we have
Skittles A5 on the right. Now, you might notice a couple of differences between Bob and Skittles right away. First of all, Skittles has a touchpad screen.
That's helpful.
Yeah, and Bob apparently has a drone landing mount on the top of his head. Now, these are built in Germany.
Of course.
And Bob uses 3D cameras and scanners to build a map of his patrol area and then patrols that area automatically. Bob can speak but carries no weapons, let alone he doesn't have any arms, so he's not actually going to necessarily apprehend anybody.
Okay.
However, he does have the ability to contact human security guards and ping them to their location, and using like location technology, they'll come out there. Bob ended up with Ubuntu. Skittles, he runs Fedora Linux with SE Linux enabled. That's how he runs. And Skittles also has an Intel Core 2 Duo processor.
Oh,
and so they're pretty proud of the fact that it's a Linux on x86 computing platform that runs both these robots. They think that makes it pretty unique and compelling. So. They have, of course, wireless networks in them. Look at this.
I love the face. I would actually add more value to me if they would just go ahead and fill his head with Skittles. I'm just putting that out there.
And he can run 20 hours on a single charge, too, which is pretty great.
Very cool.
He has, so Skittles A5 has a 15-inch 1024 by 768 touchscreen. He also has 10 dual 10-watt speakers so he can yell at you.
Oh, that's kind of cool. But if you're waiting for security, that does make sense, right?
Human, stop immediately. Human, do not pee in the fountain. The head is equipped with 32 LEDs, which can provide lighting signals to humans, like warning human, warning human. The Bob security guard was implemented by the University of Birmingham Computer School of Science as part of the Standards project. Yes, Strandis project.
Okay.
That is attempting to develop intelligent autonomous behavior for periods of up to 4 months in human-populated environments. So the idea is eventually these guys 4 months without having to be told what to do.
Now, I wonder if they've actually addressed things like vandalism and things like that. I mean, like when I was a kid,
you mean robot
we would have had this thing spray painted and tied
up.
Oh,
you mean? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you meant the robot was gonna. I thought you meant the robot was.
Yeah, that would be interesting if he was running around doing that. But I think that's a question we have to ask ourselves: are we, as a species, able to not
mature enough?
Yeah, to not spray paint him and hang him upside down.
Imagine, you're gonna spray paint a male body part on a robot because then that robot's gonna drive around with a male body part on its robot head.
Well, I mean, when we were kids, I knew of people that used to do terrible things to Chuck E. Cheese, so I can imagine what this robot must be going through. I'm just saying, kids are horrible. You never know.
We've got a link. If you follow the link in the show notes, that article also links to a video that's embedded on the BBC's website. Don't have Flash installed right now.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not going to be able to play that for you. Who needs Flash?
Flash is for chumps. Yeah, if Flash is a dead technology, only every other website uses it. But that's, and why install it by default? Because that would be helpful.
Shoot. Anyways, but you can watch the video if you'd like.
That's right.
Over on the BBC's website.
You get the gist.
And I, for one, can't wait to have a robot security guard patrolling the grounds here at the Jupiter Broadcasting
He looks
Studios.
friendly enough, and I think it'd be kind of cool to have something that alerts you, and then you can distract your perps with free Wi-Fi.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. I like
see what
that.
I'm saying?
Hey, Matt, before we go on, I got some great picks. I want to thank our first sponsor this week, and that is the great folks over at DigitalOcean, DigitalOcean.com. And use our promo code while you're over there last June. It's the final weeks of June, if you can believe that. I mean, is that not the most insane thing in your face all day? Why not give the Linux Action Show a good showing? Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code LastUnplugged. Now, why would you want to go to DigitalOcean?
No idea. Why? Actually, I do. I know exactly why I would, but go ahead and tell us.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, just in case maybe you forgot from last week. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. Now, Matt, most folks can get a cloud server spun up in 55 seconds.
I've been hearing this.
But if you're wily out there, if you're just if you're bucking the trend, you might be able to get yourself a DigitalOcean droplet spun up in, 47 seconds or so. And guess what? Pricing plans start at $5 per month. And that's where that last June promo code comes in. When you use the promo code last June, you're going to get a $10 credit.
Nice.
You can try out that $5 rig for 2 months, and here's what you're going to get. 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, one CPU, and a terabyte of transfer, all locked in. You know exactly what your cost is going to be.
Well, and speaking of the credit, I tried this credit myself because I actually have a WordPress project I was working on, and I was amazed at the fact that I actually shared what I was building, and that was a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
and I love the fact that it actually only took me about a minute, probably about 55 seconds or so.
Yeah,
yeah, I was pretty happy with it.
It's totally
really fast,
it's totally wicked, and sort of their secret sauce is honestly the DigitalOcean dashboard. It's amazing what they're able to do. With web standards sitting on top of KVM, they really have one of the best interfaces, intuitive control panel. Power users can even replicate the control panel on a larger scale with their API. And I think the other thing I love about DigitalOcean is you've got some flexibility in their data center locations. They've got data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, and Amsterdam. And they offer private networking, DNS management, snapshot backup, an HTML5 console written in Go, two-factor authentication, one-click installation for things like GitLab, Ruby on Rails, or WordPress.
Yes.
It's such a great system, such a great technology, and you can try out the $5 rig. You'd be amazed at how much Linux you're going to get for $5 a month. You get root access to a server connected to Tier 1 bandwidth up in the web, up in the cloud,
That's
if you will.
That's what I liked about it. I had the WordPress action going with the root access, and the fact that I was able. It was actually the easiest install I've ever done.
I know.
WordPress ever. I couldn't. It was stupid simple.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my god.
It takes less time than installing VirtualBox. You get way better performance. It's a genuine system up in the cloud. You can point people to it. You can, just GitLab alone makes it worth the $5 a month. Go over to DigitalOcean.com, use the promo code LastJune, and check them out. Let's have a good showing for the month of June for the Linux Action Show. That lets them know you appreciate the show and appreciate them keeping us on the air. DigitalOcean.com, and a really big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show.
Love them guys. God, it's just great. Good
to the last drop, man.
Yeesh.
Okay, I got a pick for you that Rikai found for me that I absolutely love, and I had to share it with the Linux Action Show audience. You know me, I like me a good command line trick or two, and if I could make my command line experience even better, even quicker, because I like to be lazy, it's one of the reasons I use Fish Shell, I'm going to tell you about it. It's called AutoJump. And AutoJump is a command that learns your CDs, your change directories.
Oh, man, that would be great.
Turns out, Matt.
Holy crap.
One of the most used shell commands ever is CD. A quick survey among his friends, the developer here, revealed that between 10 and 20% of all commands they ever type is the CD command. Yeah. Unfortunately, jumping from one part of your system to another requires you enter almost the full path, which honestly does take a lot of time. It's not very practical. So AutoJump runs in the background and listens to what you type. Now, I know this sounds almost NSA, but trust me, it's not. It's going to sound better than it is once you understand how it works. And it'll eventually make jump lists for you, so that way it's much easier to jump between directories. So the way it works is you add it to your Bash RC profile, so that way when you, and by the way, it's not available. It's also available for other operating systems too. But here it is on my Archbox, and here's the syntax. So you run AutoJump once.
Okay, and that kind of runs the wizard, if you will.
And then you have this J command. So I'll just give you an example. Like if I do JStat, like if I do J -- stat here, right? What? Oh, shoot, I did this on my computer upstairs. Well, all right, well, here, I'll run it for you really quick. So once you start AutoJump in here, so I have mapped this directory right here, for example. So if I had set this up properly, I could type J today. And when I do that, it would jump to the today folder. It would be case insensitive.
Oh, nice.
So I don't have to put the full path in here. I don't have to put home, Chris F, Dropbox, Jupyter Remote Host today. I just put J today, even though it's lowercase
like
today.
A loose reference to that particular directory.
Because I have CD'd into that while AutoJump was listening in the background. Now it recognizes that. And then you can have different directories that have different weighting. So, and I think they show that a little bit here in the man page. You can say, okay, if I have multiple directories that are like, here's one that's inbox and inbox, you could say, all right, this one has this weighting and that one has that weighting. So that way, if you don't specify one, it defaults to one that has the highest weight. And then if you do specify, you can say J, then you can give it a little bit more clear of syntax, and it'll jump to the correct one.
So here's a question for that. So like, let's say you've got 2 or 3 of them, and it jumps to the highest weight, and it's like, oh, that's not the one I wanted. Are you able to basically then use a command to get into the next one, or do you tab, or how does that?
Yes, and you can specify a little prefix to choose the other one.
Okay, so that would be perfect. And I can prefix that out.
You can also jump to, so like I have right here, in mine I have the Today folder. That's my Tech Talk Today folder where I have clips I want to play on the stream. Right. And I'm usually throwing something in there once or twice a day. So what I do now is I jump to the command line before I run YouTube download or whatever it is I'm going to grab. Right. I just type J today, puts me into that folder. But here's what's really cool is you can also specify subfolders in there. So I could say I could say today episode 12 or 13, and it would jump me all the way down into that folder. So instead of writing out this long path that's super deep into my crazy Dropbox, I just use this. So
the weighting system then works also, or the weight system rather.
Yeah,
works for the subdirectories.
I only upstairs only have like a dozen directories. So like I have my temp in there, I have my var log in there, I have a couple of folders in my Dropbox. I have where my music is at. I have pictures in there, and I have a few show production folders in there. So I don't really have a lot of weighting issues right now. But if you had multiple directories, like in this case, mail inbox, but it has a system to accommodate you.
And I think the weight system, and then of course being able to alias things out as you need, is a great way to go.
Yeah, it's kind of a system that creates aliases for you, exactly, on the fly. It uses a J wrapper, so then once you don't have to type CD anymore. Once you have a jump directory in there, you just type J and then the name of the directory. I love that it's case insensitive because honestly, sometimes I'm jumping in out of stuff that we created years ago in the Dropbox, and I don't honestly remember what the syntax or what the case sensitivity was or anything like that. It's nice to just know, oh, okay, I just typed today.
Give me some loose wildcard abilities here. Yeah, for certain.
So you can find it on GitHub. It is in the Arch user repo, but also you don't even have to go get a package. You can just download it as a shell script, and then you call it in your bash RC.
Oh, okay.
So here's the example right here. You download the installer file. It's just a shell script. It runs, and then they tell you where to drop it. They also has a README file you should probably read because it might be more current than the GitHub pages. But super easy to install in Arch.
Seems like it.
Super easy.
Sweet.
And I enjoyed it quite a bit. I got it on my main workstation up in my office that I do a lot of our show production on.
Very cool.
All right. So something that was at SouthEast LinuxFest this week that seemed to be getting a lot of attention, I noticed on Twitter. I saw a lot of the tweets coming out of South were about a distro called Arch Assault. And I think this is one we're going to go into in further detail on a future episode of the Linux Action Show. But you're probably familiar with some of these penetration testing distributions. Yes. We've covered a couple of them. This is Arch Assault. It's a fully customizable, persistent distribution done the Arch way. It's a derivative for penetration testers, security professionals, and all-around Linux enthusiasts. They have a lot of really awesome tools on here for cracking into wireless networks or banging against systems or even just doing a self-audit, which is I strongly recommend you check these things out. They have an ARM branch if you want to throw it like on a Pie to make like a security auditing appliance.
That I really like, actually.
Yeah.
$35 Pi, boom, boom, boom.
If I had a very common request from my clients was persistent auditing, persistent checking. They didn't want to do quarterly checks. They just wanted something that just sort of ran on a sort of an ongoing basis and alerted them. You could see how throwing something like this on a Raspberry Pi, you could pitch it as well, hey, client, here is a audit in a box. This doesn't replace the full audit we'll do for you, but this will supplement and keep things going for you. I think that's a compelling...
I think that's a real... Yeah. I mean, think about it, because it's like, okay, not only can I low power you, I'm not going to be a drain on your resources or you have to find room for this thing. Stick it on a wall under something, whatever. But the fact that it just takes care of business and you don't have to care...
Yeah,
that's appealing.
And they just added a whole bunch of new tools, and they had a new major release as well. And there are, like the chat room's pointing out, other Arch-based penetration distros.
Oh,
like
there are
Black
for anything.
Arch.
I mean, sure.
I feel the need to do a roundup soon, so I think we'll do one.
Just to kind of maybe see what the highs and lows of each are.
But people on the floor at SouthEast LinuxFest seem to be pretty impressed by Arch Assault. And I believe there was a security conference sort of going on around the same time itself. So there was a bit of a crossover there, and people were impressed.
Got to go where the buzz is, guys.
That's right. So check it out. It's at archassault.org. We'll have a link in the show notes, and I wouldn't be too surprised if there was maybe a review that showed up in the future.
That would be awesome.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know what could happen, Matt. All right, Matt, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com, Matt. Ting is mobile that makes sense. My mobile service provider and Matt's mobile service provider. And Matt, I've been on the Ting network now for quite a while, and you have too. And I love the fact that it's just a flat $6 a month plus my usage on top of that. But one of the things I also really love is the fact that Ting is... they are very open to new ideas and trying out new things as a company. And one of the things that I have been really pleased with is a good community around trying out different things on the Ting network with new OSs. Now, this isn't a Ting sanctioned release, but this is something that the folks in the community have been working on. I've got Ubuntu Touch on my Nexus 5 right now. And I've been making calls on the Ting network using my Nexus 5. Now, the battery just died.
Oh,
so
of course,
that is a problem with Ubuntu Touch right now. So it's
a little bit of a battery hog.
It's not necessarily for production, but it is a lot of fun to play with. And it's one of the great things about the Ting network is you get to buy your device, you own your device, then you put it on a network where you only pay for what you use.
Nice.
And then I think one of the best parts is there's no contract, there's no early termination fee. They just take your minutes, your messages, your megabytes, they add them all up, whatever bucket you fall into at the end of the month, boom! That's what you play. Plus, I mean, the man's probably going to take his cut. So whatever the cut, the man's got to take, which...
Got to pay the man.
Which sucks. But I mean, that's how our United States of America works here, everybody. So you pay your $6 plus the man's cut, and it's really, really easy. And to manage all of it, Ting has an awesome dashboard that keeps it really straightforward, keeps it right in front of you what's going on. You can set alerts. It's a really good system. And one of the things I love about Ting is they are smartphone enthusiasts. And that's why they always make sure to rock us with an app pick. So let's check it out. Kyra's doing our app pick for us this week, Matt. Here we go. It's easy do. And Kyra's going to tell us all about it.
Want one app to keep everything on track? I'm Kyra, and this is Ting's App of the Week.
Yeah! Go Ting! Go Ting!
Easily Do ties all of your services together in an easy-to-view info hub. It connects with your email, Twitter, Facebook, Dropbox, and more to notify you about what matters most. After opening the app and logging in, Easily Do automatically integrates with your calendar, weather, contacts, and anything else native to your device.
That's handy.
Informing you of stuff like duplicate contacts and new contact info. Tap the menu button to view your account tools. Here you can connect with a variety of services, change your preferences, schedule tasks, and more. The Connections tab is where you get hooked up with the good stuff.
Oh!
Facebook, for example, displays your friends' trending and noteworthy posts, daily top photos, birthday reminders, and more. Get an email with concert tickets or tracking details for a package? After connecting with Gmail or another client, Easily Do recognizes info inside your email to notify you for upcoming events.
Yeah!
To change what the app tracks and how you're notified, tap the settings cog on the main feed.
Okay.
In this section, called Do It, you can enable or disable daily actions and notifications, letting you craft exactly what you want to see. You can automate 37 different tasks using Easily Do, including unique actions like getting alerted when your boss emails you and auto-texting your friends when you leave the gym. While there's a lot of capabilities in the Settings and Tools menu, you can enable and disable features to tailor the app specifically for you. Easily Do is available for free on Android and iPhone. They also offer a premium version for $4.99 a month that includes some bonus features you might find useful. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe for future videos.
Boss.
And don't forget, you can also call Ting 1-855-TING-FTW. Yeah!
Good stuff.
That's
Great
right.
tip. Easily Do. I can remember that.
1-855-TING-FTW, anytime between 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. That's on the East Coast because that's where Ting's at. And a real Canadian will answer the phone, and they can solve your problems. Go to last.ting.com. That lets them know you appreciate them supporting the Linux Action Show, and it'll take $25 off your first device if you've got
She's
a
got
Ting
great
compatible
app
device.
picks. I mean, it's like that's a really cool app.
That is very handy, I know.
Yeah, I'd use that.
And hey, Matt, by the way, this is a nice pro tip. If you've got a Sprint-compatible iPad, you can bring it over to the Ting network now and have your data connection on your iPad active all the time and only pay for what you use.
No. Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Because those seriously,
really cool.
iPads are freaking worthless without data.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
totally.
They're
really bad.
My son's got like an Angry Birds game now that won't even start without a data connection, but there's no way I'm going to pay some carrier a ton of money for something he'll use once or twice a month. But with Ting, it's pay for what you use. Last.ting.com.
Yeah, I think you can actually, at least with a lot of devices, you can actually, through Ting, glide them out, sell them, and then go ahead and apply that toward, say, a compatible.
They're also doing like phone swaps.
Go.
You can swap from like an iPhone to a Samsung Galaxy. So they got a lot of options over there.
Good stuff.
All right, Matt, let's start with Firefox's ambitions to get in your living room. That's right. Wow. Firefox wants to compete with the Chromecast. And they have a, now this looks like, I don't know what's,
wow.
That picture is a horrible picture. I'll show you what the device, because that gives you no idea how big the device is.
I don't even know. I mean, and from the picture, you're like, oh, it's a router, or it's a phone, or it's a box.
Exactly. But no, it's going to be a streaming stick powered by Firefox OS, thus, of course, Linux. And it's going to offer, theoretically, a lot of the same functionality. Here's a better picture of it.
Oh, no, that's much better.
Right.
Okay. And that's the picture they should have been watermarking.
Yeah. So you can see it's got HDMI, kind of like the Roku stick does, and obviously like the Chromecast does. There's also a little bit of a video that gives you an idea of kind of what the UI
we use the term video loosely. But,
it's more of like a blurry, shaky thing that they posted on their website. So right here, he's sending from an Android device. This is on his TV using, so you can see up there it says Asus Nexus 7 is connected to the Firefox TV. And now he is essentially casting YouTube from his Nexus 7 onto the TV, and that TV is using that Firefox OS stick.
You know, I understand the whole shaky cam thing, but, you know, if he did just a little bit of editing, he could have eliminated 3/4 of that.
So now he's going to choose the video.
Okay.
And now he's going to be able to choose play here, and then... This is really, as somebody who makes videos, this is one of the first ones.
It's like, wow.
All right, so now it is sending to the Firefox OS stick in the background. Now, if something like this, if like say like a group like Plex jumped on this, like they jumped on the Chromecast, I would be all about this.
You know they would.
Yeah. I like this. I think this is a great idea. A little competition for Chrome OS.
Good.
Another Linux-powered gadget for our living room. And I would love to see something. I don't know. I haven't seen a ton of apps that ship with Chromecast support. Maybe it's because I don't have one, so I don't see it show up.
Yeah, I run them. We run it in the bedroom. We have a Chromecast in the.
So do you see apps just showing up with like a Chromecast button?
No, like for us, we go to like on the phone. We just go into Google Play, and you actually have apps. You can add all 10 of them, I think, or 6 of them. It's really weak.
So it's pretty limited.
Yeah, and everybody's like, it's better than the. And it's like, you know, it's good. It's good for Netflix and Hulu. It's good if you have Google Play stuff. You know, but
you know what I really want though
I
want, and maybe Google I/O is next week. Maybe we'll get this. Is I want something that is a competitive response to AirPlay, because on iOS you can do system level audio, and any application's audio will go to whatever device you send it to, and that could be a Bluetooth device, or it could be another another Apple device that supports AirPlay. But it only works with Apple stuff. I would love to have like a Firefox OS, or if it's Chromecast, implemented in all of the apps where I could, at a system level, send all of the audio from my Nexus 5 to one of these devices. Because what I like to do is I'm listening to podcasts in the truck while I'm driving, and then I get home and I want to finish the podcast, but I don't want to listen on my crappy phone speakers. I want to listen on my computer speakers, or I want to listen on my home theater speakers or whatever, and I want to be able to just send the audio like I could if I had an iOS device. And so if they add that functionality, I would buy it just for that capability alone. If at the system level I could say any application's audio, send to this thing, or any video on the system, send to this thing, that would be really compelling for me.
Fun fact, and 2 things to consider. 1, you're either in a country that allows this, or 2, you're using this to watch legal trailers. You can actually popcorn time your video to Chromecast.
Oh, really?
You can. It's horribly inconvenient and a pain in the butt. It requires a lot of remoting in, but you know, with TeamViewer, it's really not that hard. Again, there's certain legal considerations there, but for testing purposes, I did try it. Wow.
I think
it actually looked really good.
Well, I mean,
so it's kind of like
they just have to tighten that up a little bit. They got themselves something that's the chat room's pointing out I could do Bluetooth to the computer, and one of the things that I think Chromecast is going to take it away, especially if Google even just kind of invests a little bit in Chromecast at I/O this week.
I would think they should, at the very least, app some stuff out there.
Because what I would like to see is Chromecast in all of the things, and we've just seen recently that I don't know if you caught this, Matt, but VLC is adding Chromecast support. So
that would actually help the popcorn.
You can Chromecast to and from VLC, so you'll be able to send a VLC signal to a Chromecast.
Wow.
But I think VLC will also be able to operate as a Chromecast receiver, essentially.
You could also do some CCTV action with that.
Oh, yeah, you could.
Yeah, now that I start noodling that around, it's like...
And then take advantage of VLC's built-in recording functionality.
There it is.
So Chromecast obviously has a pretty big head start over the Firefox OS thing.
Yes.
both Linux powered. And the other thing, one last thing, and we'll move off this, is the Firefox OS stick would be more compelling to me as well than the Chromecast if they released the operating system that powers it as generally available that you could load on a Pi or you could load on your own device.
That would be cool.
Right? Because
right
now the Chromecast is limited to just the devices that Google ships it on, even though it's a general Linux operating system that powers it. So maybe the Firefox OS guys would be willing to distribute it as more of a freely downloadable OS that you could load on certain types of hardware.
Yes, I think that combined with actually embracing more application methods, like what we were talking about with VLC, things like that early on where Chromecast is still kind of dragging their feet.
Yeah.
If they're actually like hitting,
they hustled down on that right away.
Yeah, they would own that space and become a very much a sought-after toy.
All right, well, let's talk about something that might be a toy for some of you, but might be something you actually want to try on your Raspberry Pi. There's a distribution out there called Maynard. It's a Wayland-based lightweight desktop environment designed for the Raspberry Pi, and I'm calling it a distribution because you can get it as a fully packaged up one complete image, but it's actually technically just a desktop environment sitting on top of Wayland. So in a Raspberry Pi, you've got the Broadcom BCM 2835 processor. You got 512 megabytes of RAM, so it's pretty rough to run like KDE and GNOME on a Raspberry Pi. Yeah. A lot of people run LXD, that's what I did, or LXQT potentially via Raspbian, and it's pretty workable, but LXD doesn't support Wayland, and if you want to run Wayland on a Pi, that's not going to work very well. So introducing, like I said earlier, Maynard. It's a Wayland it's based on Wayland and GTK. It's using a hardware video scaler found in the Broadcom BCM 2835 chip, so you got a nice performance. Makes everything smooth. There's a screenshot of it there, Matt, of the Maynard desktop.
Well, and the first thing that strikes me is, first of all, you got the dock on the side. I like that. I feel like the user interface is certainly appealing. It feels like it's got a nice flow to it.
Look compared to my dock, it's a little GNOME 3. You see?
Yeah, it's got some GNOME 3 feel to it, and it doesn't look like it would be horribly intensive. I would be interested in how it performs.
Well, check this out.
Boy.
All right, so I didn't get a chance I don't have the Pi here at the studio, so I didn't get a chance to load it, but look at that. Tell me that doesn't look really slick and really smooth. I'll bring it up full screen for us here.
Okay.
Look at that. Look at the way that thing's sliding out. That to me I think that's pretty. How you open up a window?
It seems like it's pretty responsive. And
look at that.
Oh, that was very quick.
Look at that.
See,
look at that. Right.
Now the browser, if they can nail that down, I think they're using Epiphany. I think.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Which is probably the best choice.
Yeah. So what you're seeing here is, for you audio listeners, is it looks like a fully composited desktop where there's actually like transition animations between windows opening and closing.
Yeah. Smooth compositing on a Pi. That's.
And look here, so like when this window opens up, now the one thing you'll notice is that it's still a Pi, right? So like, see that window opens up really nicely. But when he goes, and the expose-like effect works really well, but when he goes to close Epiphany, there's a little bit of a lag. Watch, he'll go to close it, and now it's closed.
Yeah,
so, but that's
acceptable.
Yeah, that's
considering what a bloatware hazard a browser is anyway on a low-end machine. I don't care what you're running. All browsers suck.
Yeah.
So that's not bad.
Yeah. When I saw how smooth those animate, you can tell they are using the video acceleration in the Broadcom chip. Here's the great part, though. You don't need to have a custom distro to use this. There is a full image out there you can get. That's why I was calling it a distro. But you can actually get just Maynard on your Raspbian Pi, and we have the syntax. It's just a wget and then a shell script, and then you start it.
Wow. So basically what you're telling me is that is whatever distribution you happen to be fond of.
Well, I think you might have to be on Raspbian because I think that shell script does an apt-get.
So it's a Debian-based type
I think it pulls down some packages. But you could be on Raspbian and just...
Raspbian's fine.
Yeah, look at that.
I would play with that. It's Debian-based, right? So, that should be fine.
Chris wants to know when we're going to see the next Raspberry Pi. I think it's close, Matt. I think it's close.
Time to buy.
Have you heard of Mantle?
Yes.
Mantle is something that I'm still trying to totally wrap my head around. It's AMD's essentially replacement for OpenGL, only available for Windows right now. And I guess kind of the backstory is, and I'm not really hip on this, so where I would recommend you go is go over to PCPer.com because these guys know this stuff. But what I understand is DirectX 11 is like super old. It's been around for a really long time. It's a bloated API. It's very generic. And that inspired AMD to create Mantle. Mantle is a lower level API to give you better performance for targeting graphics chips. And it's tuned specifically to AMD GPUs. Right. And, so it's sort of the opposite of DirectX 11. It is an API that's specific to a chipset. It's very current. It's very low level. And one of the big questions has been, hey, AMD, you want to make this an industry standard. When are you going to move this over to Linux? Because right now it's only on Windows. Well, guess what? Windows is going to have DirectX 12 in a little while. They're not going to need your Mantle. So what are you going to do about it? So Ryan Shrout did an interview with AMD's lead gaming scientist, or he's their only gaming scientist. They talked about a couple of things, including AMD's OpenWorks program. But the one I wanted to play is the part from the interview where they talk about Mantle coming to Linux. I think this is it right here.
Let's... Can I just say, Alan's the lucky winner of the 280 there. But if you're not lucky enough to win, you guys are doing a review, so you'll be able to make your own judgments about whether.
Yes, we have a review of a 280 coming up probably next week. So
awesome. I should be right after this.
It won't be this specific one. The one you get will be brand new. I won't have tested it and benchmarked it. I don't think. I don't know. I guess I won't promise anything.
If I recall, right after the giveaway, he segues right into the Linux question.
Okay.
I want to ask you some other questions, maybe a little bit off topic. Well, not off topic, but off of that topic. Let's talk about platforms, something like SteamOS. Where is AMD's stance on Linux gaming support, SteamOS in general, commitment to that? Like I said, we're talking about spreading resources thin, and now we're talking about a whole other operating system to deal with as well.
Yep. So AMD's commitment is really clear. If this is the future of gaming, then absolutely we will support it. And what we're seeing at the moment is that there's a lot of enthusiasm for the Steambox. Valve have their own good reasons for deciding to go down what is a pretty unusual route for a software developer. Most folks don't produce their own kind of console PC. But there's AMD design out there that you can pick up for a Steambox. And our commitment is sufficient to all of this that not only will we supply a high-quality OpenGL driver, but we're also considering, emphasis on the word considering, this is not a commitment or a decision, for example, taking Mantle there too. We want to give the opportunity for the games player to get the best out of the hardware. And if games developers say, we think we can do better than just using the standard API, OpenGL, DX, whatever it might be, can we have Mantle, please? Then we will listen to that. So,
what do you think, Matt?
I smell some horse crap there somewhere. So first of all, AMD historically has sucked donkey butt on Linux side. I take that with a grain of salt. Assuming this is true, and assuming there's not some weird lock-in thing that we're not aware of yet, which it doesn't sound like there is. It sounds like it's totally optional and you can use it or not use it. I'm still skeptical. It sounds like that pretty much wherever the dollars go or wherever, I don't know, it just felt very PR speak to me.
Yeah, and
I'm not buying it.
I'm with the chat room too. We have had people write in who've been raving and raving and raving about Mantle and said that Mantle's going to change everything. And I've actually been kind of hostile that we haven't done a whole episode dedicated to Mantle. And I look at Mantle and I think, here's what I see. I see AMD once again being too scared to lead. And so what they're doing is they're sitting back and waiting to see what the industry tells them to do, because for years they've been hitched to Microsoft's bandwagon. Now Microsoft has started to screw them because DirectX is no longer the primary focus. This guy even admits it in the interview that Microsoft has other things to worry about than becoming the leader of the PC gaming industry anymore, so DirectX has suffered. So AMD decided, well, we're going to take Mantle because we want to sell more graphics cards, so we have to push our graphics cards. So here's Mantle. But it's only available for the very desktop that we just said doesn't care about gaming anymore, and we're not going to lead and give developers an opportunity to create Mantle games for Linux. We're going to wait and see until there's demand for it. However, isn't that a bit of a chicken and the egg problem, because there's not going to be demand for creating Mantle games unless there's Mantle support on Linux.
That's the problem. See, here the problem with AMD is that they're looking at this strictly from a dollars and cents point of view, not from a passion point of view or even a futuristic point of view. They're not looking down the road. They're looking one step in front of them and saying, okay, well, Windows is still the top thing, so we're just going to continue to do that.
Like
that's where they're at.
I feel like I'm looking at AMD and I'm looking at 10 years down the road, and like they're still they'll just be diminished and diminished. They don't get the fact that they have an opportunity with Mantle to really make it an industry standard right now, because there is more hate for OpenGL in the development community than there has ever been. And we are seeing Microsoft is responding to that with DirectX 12. Apple has responded to that with Metal for iOS. And we need something on the Linux side because developers want to avoid using OpenGL. I know it sucks. I know people don't like to hear it, but you guys have seen the articles. You have seen all the developers whining about OpenGL, and Mantle looks like a sexy product that has a lot of good offerings. It looks like it's really sort of been, it's graphics designed for 2014.
Sure.
The way it should be without the cruft, low level, down to the hardware, something Linux could really use. But instead of leading, instead of seeing the market demand for that, instead of being the first there with that to move the direction that way, to reduce their reliance on Microsoft, what they are doing is they are locking in the future of DirectX.
And I think part of their problem too, and I think this is really the problem, is that they are at the end of the day a hardware vendor. Okay, the software that they develop is basically to facilitate that hardware, because they know that people will probably, by and large, limp along with what's available on Linux. They are not really that motivated, and that's the problem. Is they haven't had a fire lit under their butt yet. They don't see any real reason to. And I mean, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
They really don't. I mean, and I can almost see where they're coming from, but they will pay a price. What they're doing at this moment is they're looking at Valve saying, "Hey, that looks really cool. We're watching you really, really closely because it's free."
And if we think we're going to make some money off of you, then we might move it over. But the problem is,
and they know looking is free. They know they can sit back and watch at no cost.
It seems to me like if you wait till the market's there requesting it, then you're already too late, because that means all of the solutions that have created the demand for that platform will be based on OpenGL.
And from a horrible, selfish point of view, if they were smart, like you said, by taking the lead here, they would literally have a one-up in Linux over NVIDIA very quickly. Yeah, very quickly.
I know that's what's
kind of a no-brainer in my opinion.
It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's the way the tide's blowing and the wind's blowing. That's where the tide's going. And it's like, how can you be the lead gaming scientist and still be hitching your platform to Windows?
Well,
what's the matter with you?
The guy is very old school. I'm trying to think of the nicest way to put this. He strikes me as someone who is the best the 90s ever produced.
Yeah.
And he's 90s mindset. I think he probably golfs with Ballmer. I mean, he's that kind of guy.
You know what? You're probably right. And I don't mean to be like an anti-Mantite here, but I just think Mantle it's from one shop. Intel and NVIDIA are not going to be all of that, especially NVIDIA is not going to be all of that motivated to implement it. I don't know what its future is on mobile, especially multiple mobile devices. They don't have any Linux support, and I don't know about their Mac support. So, I mean, yeah, Mantle's closer to the metal, but what they're going to do is just demonstrate a need for APIs that are closer to the metal and then be replaced and irrelevant. They already seem irrelevant to me.
And a lot of times, especially if you have this is the problem with and I say older and tenure at a particular position, older tenured positions in a company like that, you tend to get real comfortable. You got a butt groove in your chair, and you're not really that interested in rocking the boat. Where Valve their entire business is kind of in jeopardy if they don't do something. So they're motivated to care.
Let me ask you this. Let me play devil's advocate. Do you think that maybe what actually is happening is they've got a Steam box in house, they're waiting for it to they're waiting for a couple to ship, and then they're going to be like, boom, Mantle support, ready for Steam OS today. Like maybe they're working on it in house, but
with a different leadership, yes. With the current leadership, no. Simply because he's a play it safe kind of guy. He's a Microsoft-minded kind of fella. That unless someone new comes in or he gives greater freedom to the people beneath him, AMD historically has shown they are lackluster.
Yeah.
Windows is easier. It's more comfortable. They're established. They know that it's plug and play. The cards are already there. They got the numbers. Blah blah blah. It's easy peasy.
I'm with folks in the live chat. Like they're like, well, can't we just make OpenGL better? And I feel like
that would be nice.
Yeah, but I wonder if maybe that ship has sailed. Like developers have collectively decided that OpenGL is the devil, and so it must therefore be replaced.
It's possible, and I know
it's
nothing,
hokey too.
I don't know how low level or not low level it is. I don't know that much about how OpenGL works, but my understanding is not only do you have the opinion, but if the ability's not there now, maybe it's as there's limitations as to how good it can get. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, Matt, the Steam sale's been going on this week, so let's wrap up the news with the last bit of little news here on gaming, and that is XCOM Enemy Unknown released for Linux. Big release. It's targeting 1404, not 1204, which I thought was interesting because that was sort of the original target.
Yeah.
Enemy Unknown is a turn-based tactical game developed by Firaxis Games. The title is a remake of the 1994 UFO Enemy Unknown, and it was released for Windows like a year or so ago. But Enemy Unknown is a pretty good game. If you haven't grabbed it yet, and the Steam sale I think wraps up on Monday, it's just one worth buying. It was on sale. I picked it up last sale, actually. I didn't pick it up this sale, when it was only for Windows, knowing that they had already said they were going to try to target it for Linux, so I picked it up on sale. One little pro tip, you guys, I mention this a lot, but It's really important that you buy these games under the Steam client, under Linux. Even if it's a Windows game that you're buying for the future, like I bought Age of Empires 2 because it was like on sale yesterday for crazy low price.
It's like stupid cheap.
So I was like, but I want them to know that I want this on Linux, so I'm buying it under Linux. I'm never going to play it under Windows. I don't even have
so the developer can go into their dashboard, look, and say, oh, hey, some Linux guy bought this.
Yeah, exactly. So XCOM was the same thing. I bought it under Linux a long time ago, and then once it became available, I just installed it, and it looks great. It's a great port. I believe it's 64-bit native too, so it runs great on a 64-bit system. Another awesome port that just hit Linux. This is the 2 weeks in a row we've gotten some really great games that are fantastic ports. So that's XCOM Enemy Unknown, and you might be able to get it on sale, maybe. Steam Summer Sale wraps up on Monday after the show comes out.
Boy, get on it, guys. I'll tell you.
There's some wallet-punishing deals in there. All right, Matt, that's all the news for this week. It's time to talk about SouthEast LinuxFest 2014, and it looks like it was a great show, too, although we did have to watch from afar. But before we get into our highlights and interviews, I want to thank our segment sponsor, System 76, creators of machines designed to run Linux, and run them they do. In fact, right here in my possession this week, I have the Gazelle Professional. And I'll tell you, there's a couple of things that stand out here. You can see it from here's the Skycam.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Here, on the Gazelle Professional, really, really good keyboard. Really good keyboard. Now, the numlocks is kind of all over here on the side, but you still have a full number pad, too.
That's nice.
15-inch screen, but here's my favorite thing about the Gazelle Professional. It is, like, silent. It is like absolutely silent. It's got now the way they get by with that is they do have the Intel 4600 graphics in it, I believe. So you know it's not the Iris, but it still has an i7. It has a 1080p 15.6 inch beautiful display. It has HDMI out, and because it is all Intel, everything works flawlessly. And so if you're not a huge gamer. You can still get by, you know, like you can still play Race the Sun on this thing.
Probably Fez, things like that.
Actually, I was in windowed mode, but I was playing Civ 5 on the Gazelle Professional.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can absolutely game, but it is an Intel 4600, but that gets you 4 to 5 hours of battery life I'm getting on this thing.
Yeah, and see that for me, that's where I care. If I want to, if I want to do some casual gaming, that's great. But battery life's where I want it.
Well, and here's because the battery life is so good with the Gazelle Professional. I got a little new work trick that I do. I leave the power adapter in the studio on purpose. That way I can only work up to 4 hours or 5 hours at home.
Brilliant.
And so that includes like browsing the web. This has been my main machine. So that includes just like, checking Twitter, email, and chat room. And it's been great for that. It's 4 to 5 hours, and I've never even drained it all the way down yet, so it could even go for a little bit longer. I have been so impressed. It's super light. So there's lots of great machines over at System 76, just like the Gazelle Professional or my beloved Bonobo Extreme. They also have a great line of desktops.
When I had that thing, I was gaming the heck out of it.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Leopard Extreme, though, boy. You want to go big, Matt.
If you want to render like 3 videos while you're watching YouTube and then playing 2 games simultaneously on multiple monitors, that is the system for you.
That's the
my
powerhouse.
Gosh.
Go over to system76.com. Go check out all their great rigs. Tell them the Linux Action Show sent you. Stop fighting with your hardware and start playing with your Linux. Okay, Matt, we got a whole bunch of really good stuff to go through from SouthEast LinuxFest Northwest. Producer Q5Sys and Noah were down there with their crew, and we're going to talk more about this too on Linux Unplugged. So before, I just want to make sure I don't forget, major props to the Jupiter Broadcasting crew that was on the ground, and they got some great stuff. And I want to start with the Wi-Fi gun. Are you ready, Matt?
Oh, this sounds cool.
Matt, can you tell me a little bit about what Foundstone is and what it is you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely, Noah. So Foundstone is a professional services group, and our core competency is providing penetration testing services to audit the security of mostly larger Fortune 500 organizations. So when I say penetration testing, we do about 50% of our practice is web app and application level penetration testing. So, breaking thick clients, breaking web applications, breaking mobile applications to see whether or not they're vulnerable to attack from malicious hackers. The rest of our practice focuses on internal and external penetration testing, which is traditional network level pen testing, simulating an external or an internal attacker, as well as wireless penetration testing, which you can see by the RF cannon that we have here. And we do social engineering and physical penetration testing as well.
So you brought up this this device. Can you tell me what in the world this thing is and what it does?
Yeah, well, I can probably handle that one. I brought this along. It's been years in the making. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. So the technology's on there. It's wireless RF hacking device, as he described, Nerf gun. I call it the Vera NG. It's a very eccentric radio frequency Nerf gun. It does Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Z-Wave, RFID. It's got GPS and an FM transmitter on it. And it's got a lot of this hooked up together with these high gain antennas up front. These were handmade many years ago in my basement for fun. These are some professional grade high gain antennas that'll go probably over a mile in a good day. And so a lot of this equipment I have here sort of as a fun thing, a portable hacker lab essentially. But I do use a lot of this during the course of my testing. So for Wi-Fi, we go in and we do penetration testing for corporate Wi-Fi, or I do a lot of product testing, and some of those products now we're using emerging technologies like Z-Wave and Zigbee for home automation stuff, and Bluetooth so they can talk to your cell phone. So as part of our product testing, I would go in and try to break in through the wireless connection over Bluetooth or Zigbee or Z-Wave or RFID for badge cloning and things like that.
Excuse my ignorance, but can you tell me, I guess I still don't get it, what exactly does it do?
So this is a lot of these tools on here are the ones that we would use in the security testing field for our pen testing portion. So they're Wi-Fi cards that are capable of sniffing traffic, whereas normally most Wi-Fi cards are just going to connect you up. So a lot of these utilities, some of them do specific things. Like one of these here is called the Ubertooth, and it's there for sniffing Bluetooth traffic, and that's what it does well. And then I've got a Bluetooth dongle there that's nice because it's got a connector externally. So a lot of this hardware is hand-picked out of a larger, broader scope. So for Wi-Fi, I can pretend to be an access point. I can sniff traffic. I can what we call man in the middle, which is where I have your device connect to me, and then I'm out to the network. And so a lot of these are the best of breed hardware options for testing the security of whatever device I'm asked to test or whatever network.
So essentially, if I understand you right, you've taken tools of the trade that you use and you've just attached them to this Nerf gun to make a point.
That's exactly it. It's kind of a fun thing for me, bringing it to a conference like this. I like to get people interested in security, and sometimes when you're droning on about SQL injections and stuff, people lose you. So having something physically there to get people interested and also new people into the field, this is kind of a fun, we use portions of it professionally, but it sort of looks like a fun big toy, and it is for me. These are definitely, I refer to all of these as my toys. I love playing with them. I love modifying them. I love updating firmware and trying to make them better and contributing. All this stuff is open source. The tools that I'm using with this are all open source. Most of the firmware open source. Some of these hardwares are open source. So I like contributing those projects. But as far as this conglomerate goes, it's mostly I keep liking to have more and more stuff, and I want to build it up more and more. So I even have to have 3 USB hubs to support all of the gear that I use on here. But yeah, it is maybe gimmicky, but it's to get people to ask the questions, and then we can describe sort of the process and get people a little more intrigued into what we do.
Where can people go to find out a little bit more about Foundstone, what it is you guys do, the services that you offer, and any more about this gun if that's available?
Yeah, so Foundstone.com is our primary website. They can find out a lot about services and stuff from there. This has been posted on Hackaday. I built this years ago prior to joining Foundstone, and it's just been, with Foundstone, I've been given more projects, so I've added more equipment as needed for the different projects I'm doing. So I'll actually be speaking about this later on today, so for the videos for this conference, you can probably find out a little bit more of it from that.
Well, thank you, both of you, for taking time to talk with us. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of SouthEast LinuxFest.
So that's Foundstone, and we'll have a link to Foundstone's site in the show notes. They're a part of McAfee.
A quick piece of commentary on that. I'm going to call that the never pay for internet again tool.
No kidding, right?
It's like piracy in a cannon. God.
I know. That was a great one to see the video version of if you guys are listening to the audio version.
One.
I know. And I love, Sharon was like, are those Pringle cans on there? It's like, yes, and they work. All right. Well, there's one thing you could lobby at the Linux Action Show, and I would agree with you. That is, we do not talk about Slackware enough. We don't
That's true.
We don't slack off enough on the Linux Action Show. So Noah sat down with Alan Hicks, who's worked with the Slackware project for decades, to talk a little bit about it.
We're here at Self, rolling off the afternoon. We're here with Alan Hicks, and Alan Hicks I'll let him introduce himself, but needless to say, he has contributed a lot to the Slackware project and the documentation of it.
Oh, thank you. My name's Alan Hicks. I'm the sexiest man in Charlotte, North Carolina today. I've been working with Slackware I've been using it for well over a decade now. I've been part of the project for a while, although...
No, but it's not an exaggeration to say you literally wrote the book for Slackware.
Slight exaggeration. I didn't write the book, I edited it. Okay. I wrote a couple chapters. We updated the very first Slackware Linux Essentials book. And I actually have a third edition that I haven't worked on in quite a long time, which is a complete rewrite. If I ever release that, I'll be able to say that I wrote the book.
What compelling reason can you give me to maybe take a look at something like Slackware?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, have you actually tried Slackware in a while? It pretty much works out of the box. If you want something to get work done, you can pretty much get it working out of the box. Now, we don't have the huge software library where you can, yum or apt whatever you want, and, you're pretty sure that there's a package there, but the default distro is pretty complete at covering most everything, and then we have some third-party projects like slackbuilds.org, which have, I think it's safe to say, many thousands of packages. I mean, we really don't have a count there, but it's rare that I ever go look for something that is not a very simple install. And as far as why you would want to use Slackware over some other distribution, Slackware keeps... I guess you would say it's the most purely Unix-like. I mean, it's not Unix, of course, but it keeps true to those fundamentals. It doesn't get in your way very much. If you're a new user starting out, that can be intimidating. If you've used Linux a little bit, I'd say Slackware is absolutely the easiest to use because it doesn't get in your way. It doesn't, hide things behind, weird proprietary config tools. It gives you packages. We get them probably closer to the purity that the developers intend than other distributions. So the way I like to look at it is it's a Linux distribution that's put together the way a Linux distribution is supposed to be put together. Now, I have, my own particular thoughts as to how that should be, and other people are, they feel free to differ if they like, but I think if you actually try it, if you take a look at it, you use it a little bit, you like it. I mean, it's inevitable. If you like computers and you try Slackware, you will like it.
There you go, Matt. If you like computers. And that is a Slackware user who tells it like he sees it.
And lately we've had enough technology hatred. I'm not sure we qualify for that. But
yeah, I know, right?
But,
yeah.
But I
that's all. Don't worry, Matt. That's all been on the live stream. That's all been on the live stream.
It's all on the live stream. But it's an interesting point that he brings up. One, I wasn't aware he was the sexiest man on Linux, but I think he brings up a great point in that it's changed. A lot's changed. A lot of it works out of the box. It might be worth looking into.
Yeah.
Sure.
Also, Iculus, or Ryan, who is famous for porting mini games to Linux, had a speech. Now, I believe Self will be posting the video of that directly. Some of our guys did attend some of that, but his slides are up online. That's adorable.
Nice.
His slides are online. Oh my gosh, is DuckTales coming to Linux? If that's a hint that DuckTales is coming to Linux, I'm going to freak out. Wow. Anyways, link is in the show notes if you guys want to see Iculus's slides, and we'll talk to some of the guys on Tuesday on Linux Unplugged about how his talk was. All right, so Matt, there's a group out there, you might have heard it before, called the Linux Professional Institute. They want to help you get certified, so that way you can get a Linux gerb, and Noah stopped by and talked to them.
We're back at SouthEast LinuxFest, and we're here with Emily from LPI. Good morning, Emily. I forget what time of the day it is. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about what LPI is and what it is that you guys offer.
We're the Linux Professional Institute. We are a nonprofit based out of Toronto, Canada. We've been around for about 15 years. We'll be celebrating our 15-year anniversary this October. And we provide vendor-neutral Linux certifications.
Okay, so vendor-neutral... I went through the Red Hat System Administrator course, and I took those exams and stuff. Why would I want to go to why would I want a certification of more of a generic Linux experience rather than, drilling down to a specific distribution or a specific skill set?
That's a great question. We get that question a lot. Many people don't actually know what sort of distribution they'll be working on. So by being able to certify across distributions, it gives them sort of that core architectural command line experience so that if they go into a situation where it's a mixed environment or if they switch companies, it gives them better job mobility in case they don't end up in a place that uses Red Hat.
Now, I know that that the LPI has a variety of different exams. Can you tell me a little bit about what kind of is there one set of exams that are just different levels? Are there different exams for different skill sets?
Different exams for different skill sets. So our core certifications are the LPIC series, so LPIC 1, LPIC 2, LPIC 3, and that is a sequential series, and that's primarily geared towards Linux system administrators. And then we have a new certificate program that is a professional development certificate called Linux Essentials. And so we're finding as traditional IT job roles sort of meld and merge into each other, that people who are maybe not in a typical Linux situation are now needing to sort of pick up and validate that they do have those skills to sort of migrate within their companies or open up sort of new possibilities to themselves. So that's a great program for people who maybe don't use Linux all day, every day, but need to sort of have a little bit of sort of validated experience in it.
Sure. Now, with my Red Hat experience, I know that the exam was very, very expensive, and the company paid for it, as well as the training that went along with that. How does that compare with LPI?
Ours are much more affordable for people who maybe don't have their companies paying for it. So our exams each of our LPIC exams for LPIC 1 and LPIC 2 are 2 exams. We charge $183 per exam. So for about $360, you can have a sort of worldwide industry recognized vendor neutral Linux certification.
That's outstanding, and that very low price entry is going to allow more people to take advantage of that. How many different LPI testing centers are there around the country?
Around the country, so we partner with a bunch of people. LPI does not offer training, we provide the certifications, but we have amazing training partners, not only in North America, but all over the world. So we operate globally through about 30 master affiliates, pretty much in every global region. So they also can help, so if you happen to be in a different country, contacting the nearest LPI affiliate can help direct you to those training resources.
So if somebody was interested in taking the LPI or finding more information about to take the LPI, where could those people go?
LPI.org.
Outstanding. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk.
There you go. Go get Linux certified, everybody, and go get your Linux gerb. So there's a little info about the LPI, something we haven't talked a lot about on the show.
Well, and I think she really nailed it when she was talking about, you can go for specifics, or you can, if you're not really sure what you're doing yet, go general.
Yeah.
That's a good starting point.
And have you heard of Think Penguin?
Yes, I have.
This is a group that makes like Triskel-compatible laptops, and Noah stopped by their booth to talk with them real
Coming
quick.
to you again from SouthEast LinuxFest. We're here with Christopher from ThinkPenguin.com. How are you doing today, Christopher?
Great.
So this is one of the most eye-grabbing tables in the entire conference, mainly because I see a lot of Linux stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about what ThinkPenguin is and what it is you guys do?
Sure. We basically work with the free software community in developing software and with companies that design chipsets, as well as distributions like Triskel, Linux Mint, and what we do is we make sure that all the hardware in our catalog is 100% free software friendly. Every bit of firmware on our laptop is free software friendly, except for the BIOS, which is outside. But anything basically that's loaded by the operating system is free. And what this basically does is it ensures that when you upgrade from one version of a distribution to another version of a distribution, you're getting the full support of the community. You're not relying on us. You're not relying on the company that designed the chipsets in our laptops. You're relying on the community. Doesn't matter what distribution you're using, it's going to work. And it's not just laptops and desktops and things like that we sell. We actually sell printers, dial-up modems, believe it or not. Wi-Fi cards. I mean, we have 1,000 different types of Wi-Fi cards. I'm exaggerating there. There's actually about 100 products in our catalog. So, I mean, that's basically it.
There you go. So that's the Think Penguin guys. You can check them out. We'll have a link to their site in the show notes.
Nice.
Now, this next guest, you could tell how excited Noah was to talk to him.
Oh, yeah.
This is Richard Hipp. Richard Hipp is the author and creator of SQLite, which powers a lot of the stuff we use. So this is a great chat.
Throughout the course of SouthEast LinuxFest, we have met some amazing people. We've gone through and run into a couple of people from the JB community, and every once in a while, you run into someone incredibly impressive, amazing, and a total genius. The man who may or may not...
Who is that?
Who might that be? Mr. Richard Hipp, the guy that's responsible for SQLite. Hi, Richard. How are you?
I'm doing real well, thank you.
So tell me a little bit about, for somebody who maybe doesn't know, exactly what SQLite is and what it does and the type of audience it's for.
All right, well, SQLite is an SQL database engine, but it's not like MySQL or Postgres. It's a library. It's built into your application, and it's where other database engines are trying to scale up. SQLite's trying to scale down. It's on your device. It runs your smartphone. It runs your web browser. It runs iTunes and this sort of thing. So it's an SQL database engine, but scaled down rather than scaled up.
So you said that it runs my smartphone. Can you drill down a little more specifically exactly what part of my smartphone is running SQLite?
Probably your contacts list for either Android or iOS. Most any application that you have is storing data. It will usually store it in an SQLite database. SQLite is built into the OS on both Android and iOS.
So I bet if you asked most people, they would have no idea that they're using your product, and in fact, they use it every single day, and they're just not aware of that.
That's true, yes.
So tell me a little bit about what got you interested in databases to begin with, and why did you decide to say, I'm going to make my own?
Well, I was actually doing custom software development.
Oh, okay.
And I had a problem where I was working with a team, and we needed to pull data off of a big client-server database, an Informix database. And it was read-only data. It didn't need to be scaled up. But sometimes they would power cycle this machine, and the Informix server would not come back up. And then I thought, well, and then when the server wouldn't come up, people would double-click on my program.
Right.
And we'd pop up a dialog box that we can't talk to the database engine. And that wasn't our fault. There's nothing we could do about that. But I get the support call because it was my program that was popping up the database. So, well, why can't I just write a database that could just read from the disk, and then if the computer was healthy enough to, paint the icon that they double-clicked on, it could then get at the data, and then I wouldn't have this dialog box anymore, and I could sleep through the night. And so that's what we did, and I did. I did it on my own, and I put it out there with a bunch of other open source things that I'd worked on over the years, and I just anticipated that it would get the typical 5 to 10 downloads per year that most of my open source projects got. But it got to be really popular. And companies started calling. Motorola was the first one, and said, hey, can you support this?
If you can, what was it that Motorola wanted you to support? I'm curious.
Well, they wanted to put SQLite on a new generation of phones that they were making. This was back over 10 years ago. But they wanted some extra features. And so can you add these features for us?
Sure.
Oh, sure, I can do that. And then, we got off the phone, and I thought, how can I do this? I don't know how to run a business like this. So, but I did some research, and we figured it out. Hired some people on contract, and we got the thing going.
Sure.
And this continued, and to now, I have a small company. There's we got 2 other engineers working with me, and we do nothing but support SQLite for big companies around the world.
That's outstanding. It's amazing how an open source project can kind of, it just kind of takes a life of its own. It goes to show that when you fulfill a need that people have, when you solve a problem, no matter how big or how small, that leads to huge success. And we probably better wrap up here before people start flooding out. But real quickly, can you give me maybe one more example of some place? Because I'm just blown away that I use SQLite every day and just didn't realize it. Is there any other examples you can think of? Or and then adding on to that, where can people go to find more out about you and SQLite?
Well, the website for SQLite is sqlite.org, and there's links to everything there. We got a famous users page that talks about a lot of the places where SQLite's used, like on A350 airplanes. And
that answers my previous question, I guess, huh?
Yes. So where the joke is it runs the world.
Sure.
But I don't know where it runs. It's public domain. Anybody can use it. Most people, they never tell us that they're using it. Sure. I just happen to hear about it. I find out about it. Somebody sends me a tweet or something, and I hear that, they're using SQLite for something. I didn't know that.
Sure.
So
one last question. What's your distro of choice?
Lately there's a guy at Computer Gallery and he builds all my machines for me and my Linux boxes, sends them to me, they come, and he just tells me what the root password is, and he puts on Ubuntu. Yeah. And so that's what I use.
Sure. You actually you jogged my memory. We actually talked about this in the hallway the other day.
I mean, if he put on OpenSUSE, I'd use that. I mean, whatever he puts on there is what I use.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Great chat. And one of the things that strikes me about his story there is I think, a lot of times we hear about the open source projects that obviously have blown up on the internet and they're, sort of infrastructure projects. SQLite's become one of those things, but it started as what's more of a common open source story and one that I'm a little more familiar with. Here our local school district right here in this town, actually, that we do the studio, one of the staff members there created this online attendance and grade checking system. This was years ago, years ago. And it was one of those things that you never heard about on any news website. You never heard about it on any show anywhere.
You would think. I mean, that's a big deal. And
but,
yet no one talks about it.
Hundreds of schools ended up finding this. This is even before GitHub. Hundreds of schools ended up finding this open source project and implementing it on their LAN. And that, to me, was my grassroots introduction when I was coming up through school and coming up early in my career. That was how I perceived open source to be. And what's amazing about Richard Hipp's story is that's how SQLite started. And now SQLite's like one of the biggest pieces of software in the industry. It's just used everywhere.
And I loved his passion. I loved the presentation. I love the fact that instead of just talking at you, he's telling a story as to why you care. It's great.
He mentioned they have a famous users page. I have linked to that in the show notes if you guys want to check that out. Now, our last clip is Jeremy Sands, and he's going to wrap us up from Self.
And as we wind out the morning here at SouthEast LinuxFest, a quiet time. Back in the sponsor and speaker room, we're here with Jeremy, the man who is in large part responsible for making this all happen. How are you doing today, Jeremy?
Not too bad. How are you?
Doing all right. So tell me a little bit about the days and weeks and months leading up to LinuxFest and what was all involved to make this phenomenal event happen.
Lots and lots and lots of time. You basically have to communicate with so many disparate people, sponsors, speakers, volunteers. You got to network with the local lugs. We pull heavily out of lugs. I don't know if Upstate Carolina Linux Users Group didn't exist, I don't know if enough manpower would have been readily pulled together to make Self happen the first year. So lots of people management.
Well, that's outstanding, and you guys have done a fantastic job because walking around you can see that everything seems to be very well organized. People know where they're supposed to be. I noticed one thing. Every conference I go to seems to be plagued by one problem that this one isn't. Maybe I should be knocking on wood. But, nothing has really started late. Like all the sessions seem to be starting on time, and speakers seem to be wrapping up on time.
So the way we sort of get around that is a lot of people, I think, fall into the trap of cramming as much in as possible. And for people who go to a lot of these conferences, the actual talks aren't the thing they come away most valued with. It's the hall track. It's meeting the people in the halls, the speakers during downtime. Right. That's what they really, really enjoy at the end of the event. The speakers are great, but for the people who do this a lot, that's where the gold is. And so instead of trying to cram everything in, we have like a 15-minute layover between each talk to give everybody ample time to get out, wander around, use the bathroom, go get something to drink, get something to eat, sit down with somebody, talk for a while. And I think that 15-minute sort of depressurization doesn't have such tension during the talks, because if you don't have that at the end of talks, you'll always have the speaker get mobbed by 20 people with questions, and he can't just say, hey, let's go in the hall, because you only have 5-minute room change. With 15 minutes, that's more doable. And our volunteers have been coached very well on time management. They're back there with cards shouting for attention, and if they keep going long enough, we will result to keyboard cat if necessary.
Outstanding. Well, I can personally attest as a person that attends a lot of different conferences that that 15-minute bleed time is it's totally invaluable. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. For somebody that's not here at Self, what would you like to say to them to maybe give them a nudge to come next year?
Check out our videos. Our videos are sort of our ultimate gift back to the community from which we draw our support and manpower and financial resources. But definitely, if you can, come to the event, because as I said, the talks are good, but if you think you're getting everything by watching the talks on YouTube, you're not. The hallway track is where it's at. Just to pick one example at random, the Arch Linux booth guy, Jason Plum, who showed up last year, he was looking for a job. Devon IT is here sponsoring. They provided our thin clients. And so literally he talked with Devon IT, and a lot of thin clients are ARM-powered. And so at Self, he was hired by Devon IT to manage a lot of their ARM works. So if you think you're getting it all by just listening to the talks on YouTube, you're missing an awful lot in the hall track.
That's a fantastic story. And we talked with both Ian and was it Jason, you said?
Jason Plum.
Yeah. So we talked with both those gentlemen, and they're both here again this year. And like you said, they're both working for the same company. So it's fantastic to see that. Anything else you'd like to add about Self or LinuxFest in general?
Definitely come out and attend. I think there's a deep undervalue in actual meeting and meet space. There's just so much more you can get done, and so many more much more lasting connections you can make out in the real world. This is something, one particular thing I would say, even if you don't have a Linux Fest you can go to, for heaven's sake, get involved in your local lug. A lot of people, even at a conference like this, will say, I don't care about my lug, it's too much Ubuntu for noobs, and I'm not getting anything I actually use in my insert really crazy, geeky job here. I would say that's totally wrong. The lug is like the boot camp for your local community. Without that nexus point for people to gather and rally around, you're missing a lot. Like I said, if UCLUG didn't exist, I seriously doubt the manpower would have been there to make Self happen in the first place. We drew so heavily from UCLUG in the first years and from Charlug and still UCLUG for a lot of our volunteers now. So.
And are you familiar with the online Linux user group, Linux Unplugged?
I am not. Tell me more.
So this is...
Promise that was unscripted.
Yeah. There's a shameless plug is that, so for if anyone didn't have a Linux user group, and because you're right, that community and that ability to have something to rally around is important. And for the people that, like for instance in Grand Forks, we don't have a Linux group. And Grand Forks is a city that sits, the nearest next city is another 70 miles, and there's not a Linux group there either. So I'm driving 200 or 300 miles if I want to go to a meeting. And so what Jupiter Broadcasting provides is an online Linux users group that meets every Tuesday, and if you ever had some free time on Tuesday, you should definitely consider joining us.
Attaboy. No,
well played.
In fact, I think Noah and crew will be joining us for Linux Unplugged on Tuesday. They tell me there's like another 5 or 6 gigs worth of clips that we're going to have for Unplugged. They'll be they don't have the fastest connection, so that's all we have for today. I don't know if I have the URL for the Southeast Linux Fest YouTube channel yet, but if we have that by Linux Unplugged on Tuesday, we'll have that in the show notes there, so you guys can watch all of the extra videos. And we have links to a lot of the things folks talked about in their interviews in the show notes, so go check those out to get a little more about that, including I made sure to grab some of my favorite tweets. Nice. This is something I want to start doing, so Linux Action Show audience out there, when you go to a fest or your local Linux thing, I know it's kind of hipstery, but just tweet it out and do a hashtag, and I will try to capture those and incorporate your tweets into our show, including I have some tweets of a ZFS 101 conference that was going on.
Oh, nice.
Which looked super packed. The Docker I.O. conference going on, and Iculus's conference going on. They all look like they had really good attendance. Like here's the ZFS 101. Look at that. It's a packed room.
Wow. Yeah, it is.
And here's the Docker one, another packed room. And this is Iculus's talk right there, where he talks about the Linux gaming industry.
So by using the hashtags, it allows you to basically it's not.
I know it's so like,
but it has function. It is a functional.
You
thing.
can't deny it, and it was a great way for me to sort of remotely follow the fest too. Of course, we had a great crew down there. So thank you to everyone on the Jupiter Broadcasting team who was down there at Southeast.
Oh, they owned it. I mean, it was amazing. You guys
rocked
did fantastic.
I mean, not only does Noah do great interviews, but there's a whole team of folks around Noah that are making all that happen.
The video, the audio, the production, everything was fantastic.
Yes. So go join us on Tuesdays. and listen to part 2 of our Southeast Linux Fest coverage.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. And I think I don't know, Matt. I feel tempted to go out there next year. So we're going to try to do more convention coverage. And I think it was just said in our last clip there, this meeting in Meet Space, this last year at Linux Fest Northwest here in April, it really underscored that for me. Like, there is a whole new level of connections that are made, and I really want to encourage you guys to try to attend these when you can, and let us know and report from on location. Send us in emails and your feedback, and we'd love to incorporate it, because I really want to use the Linux Action Show to try to give these types of events more exposure and more coverage. Not only are these types of things still pretty unique to the Linux community, i.e. the other operating systems don't have them, and not only do they make incredible support infrastructures for those of you that want to use Linux that maybe are a little lost, but they also offer a type of collaboration that is necessary for open source software. And I think that's the most important thing, is because the very unique nature of open source collaboration, I think that's really what's great about these conferences.
I found with like Linux Fest Northwest, for example, you got one guy walking down one end of the hallway with peanut butter. The other dude's got chocolate, and it's bound to happen, and it does. The peanut butter and chocolate hit.
A tasty encounter, as it were.
Yeah. And then the next booth over, you've got, say, like Google, when they were hiring, you have someone that's saying, hey, I'm Reese's, I want to hire you.
Yeah.
Bring in your, this stuff does happen. I mean, that's a really weak analogy, but
are you hungry, man? I'm hungry.
I'm really hungry now.
All right, well, that's the Linux Action Show's look at Southeast Linux Fest 2014. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But hey, Matt, before we get out of here, got a couple of emails I wanted to read to you. Our first one comes from a friend of the show, Jonathan Thomas, the author of OpenShot. He says, hi, Chris and Matt. I just got back from Texas Linux Fest in Austin.
Nice.
This is from last week. I wanted to share my experience with you. I was blown away by how many people were wearing Jupiter Broadcasting t-shirts, Linux Action Show t-shirts, and etc. Dozens and dozens of people were mentioned that they saw me interviewed on Linux Action Show and proceeded to tell me how they watch every single episode.
That is so cool.
After a while, we just started recommending Jupiter Broadcasting to everyone that stopped by the OpenShot booth, since the topic seemed to come up eventually anyways. Congratulations on the success of Jupiter Broadcasting and the Linux Action Show. Whatever you guys are doing seems to be working great, and Austin is in love with you guys. I think
that's so cool.
I think I got to go to Texas Linux Fest not Northwest.
No.
But I got to go to Texas Linux Fest next year.
Texas Linux Fest, barbecue and Linux. What else?
I've been looking for a good excuse to go to Texas. So Texas Linux Fest, let's talk. Chris wants to come down there. And thanks, Jonathan, for the email.
That's cool.
Magnus writes in. He says, hey, guys, I've been following the show for some time now, and I know you're ButterFS fans, as am I. And guess what? Sailfish OS, the Yalla phones, they're running ButterFS. Also, they're about to release a launcher for Android devices. If you want to try it out, he includes a link. I've had my Jalla phone for about 5 months now, and there have been some issues with it, but overall, it's a great phone. Since last update, I've been squeezing out 2.5 days on one charge.
Whoa. What?
Take a trip into the future and try out Sailfish OS today.
Okay, now you just gave me a reason why I care. That's
right.
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Okay, so, that really matters.
The Yalla launcher is coming to Android next week as we record. This is just going to be called the Yalla launcher. Initially, it's designed to give Android device owners the opportunity to try out one smooth Sailfish OS experience in a simple and risk-free way. As a launcher, it's designed to work on top of your Android OS, providing you the effortless gesture-based swipe user interface and highlights of essential tools that make Sailfish OS stand out from the competition. The alpha testing phase is targeted mainly, now this is the catch, this is the but, for Nexus 4 and Nexus 5 devices.
Yeah.
The Yalla Launcher Alpha can also be installed on any other device running Android 4.3 or later.
I got that, so that's cool.
Oh, you do? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Actually, this phone specifically.
So there you go. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. I am very much going to check that out.
Yeah. Now that I know it'll run on 4.3, I know I'm safe. But
yeah.
I mean, okay, so there's two things it's nailing that I really like. It's nailing the battery thing. Awesome. And it's nailing the, hey, let's not be douchebags about this. Let's make this pleasant for you to try.
Hey, it's like what we've always talked about. Like, what's one of the best ways to switch somebody over to Linux is get them using Firefox, get them using LibreOffice, all Pigeon, all that kind of stuff on the Windows desktop. That way, when they move over to Linux, it's a really smooth transition. Sailfish OS is taking the same thing by moving this launcher over to Android.
Right. And I will use it because of that. You're doing it right.
I want to point people over to a brand new show on the Jupiter Broadcasting Network that is getting a lot of great traction. Tech Talk Today. It's a daily tech talk show between Monday and Thursday, because Friday, I mean, I'm not an animal, people. So join me Monday, 9 a.m., noon Eastern, Monday through Thursday for Tech Talk Today. We talk about tech news from the perspective of a Linux and open source advocate, which I think is sorely missing in the tech coverage on the internet. So Tech Talk Today, and we also have the Mumble Room open, so if you are part of our lug, you can join us and give your commentary and your insights in the tech topics, and we do it every single day. So why not join us? What about you, Matt? You up to anything fun?
Up to stuff. As always, you can find me at datamation.com.
What?
Open source.
Are you serious?
And you can find stuff there. Otherwise, you can, in the show notes, you'll just find my author link.
Synchronized swimming.
There.
Oh, boy. What's going on over here, Matt? What's going on over here? What?
And,
oh, my.
Geek in the Gamer. A little bit of Super Meat Boy.
Nice. I like it.
Super Meat Boy.
You always started out with a fail like that?
We tried it, yeah. Well, and of course, anything I play, I've got a couple others in the can that we'll be releasing on Wednesday. But I try and keep it interesting at the beginning. And usually with me doing something dumb.
Hey, a little self-deprecating humor goes a long way. So yeah, that's Geek in the Gamer, youtube.com/Geek in the Gamer. And we'll also have a link to all of Matt's Datamation articles in the show notes. If you want to go do a little Matt Hartley reading,
that's right.
You can find it right there. All right, well, don't forget, we'd like to hear your feedback, so go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com. You can click the contact link and then choose the Linux Action Show from the drop-down.
That's right.
Or join us live. We do this show Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, over at jblive.tv. We've got a live chat room. You guys can hang out in there and tell us what a bunch of dorks we are. Or you can just get it converted. Like, hey, 10 a.m. Pacific time? I don't know. That's crazy West Coast time, the best place in the world. I don't know what time that is in my, not as good place in the world. Guess what? jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar.
Calendar.
Boom. Converts it to your local time zone. Boom.
In your face.
Right there for you. Just jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And go over there and do that. And also, you can also join our subreddit, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Help make our show what it is. Engage in the community. Right. Find out about things like meetups when those are happening. All kinds of stuff. linuxactionshow.reddit.com. It's just a great resource just for general news reading, too. But you can submit stories, comment, vote up or down. That's extremely important, because that helps us gauge what you guys want to see covered in the show, and it really works well for us. linuxactionshow.reddit.
Check it out. Do that.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week. Yeah, I just meant to close one tab, not all of them.
And I've done that, and it sucks. And it's not, I mean, that's
a
browser's responsibility.
They have restore too, but what am I? Yeah. What am I? An animal?
Yeah,
I'm not an animal.
Restore's kind of.
Please, I'm not an animal.
I mean, come on. After the fact.
Come on, get out of here. Get out of here. Get it out of here.
Restore's for chumps.
Come on, restore? Huh? Please. What do I need? Training wheels next? Get out of here. Mm-hmm. Get out of here. Get it out of here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Linux Action Show, PM. We're going to get real comfortable. I want you to get your favorite blankie.
Oh, yeah.
And a warm milk. And I want you to turn on this video podcast. And I want you to fall asleep right now. Come on, let's get comfy.
Fluff it.